I've been thinking a lot about the theory behind Doom Eternal's combat design, specifically relating to weapon balance, ammo economy, and the weak point system. I've had some interesting conversations about it with people who view it differently than I do, and it's inspired me to try to lay out how I see it here in this video. We know that at least from the point of QuakeCon 2018, if not before that, id Software wanted to make their game both play more dynamically and look more dynamic to people just watching the game. Hugo Martin lays this out in the NoClip interview with Danny O'Dwyer, talking about how at that point, the balance and AI weren't in a place yet to push the player away from just abusing one gun the whole time.
The truth is, when we showed it at QuakeCon, that was me playing that video of like that really long playthrough, and we showed a shit ton of content.
That was 2018, right?
Yeah. It was, there was a lot of content. We showed like a lot of stuff. It was all a lie, basically. I was playing in a way that was like meant to make it look cool, and I was weapon switching and doing all these things, but the whole time I was, I'm like, the game needs to make you play this way. Like, I'm going to play this way because this is kind of like a touch point for what we hope to achieve, and how the game will naturally make you want to play, where I'm switching and I'm moving and I'm dodging, and you can feel it. You can feel the action, and it looks awesome. Because if it looks fun to play an action game, then it probably feels fun to play an action game. So, but the way I really needed to play was just walk up to everybody and point blank them with a double barrel shotgun. And I had a couple of cuts of that, and I'm like, yeah, we can't do this. Like, let's pretend like I'm really under duress and I have to do all these things, because ultimately that's the game we want to make.
And he was right. If he had run around for 10 minutes shooting every enemy with the ballista, people would think this is the ballista game. Not only do they not want their players to play that way, they don't want their game launching in a state where everyone who's seeing it in reviews and Twitch streams sees people just running around and spamming one gun they happen to have the easiest time with. I think that is a perfectly reasonable thing to want to avoid as a developer working on a huge game with a priority of combat and dozens of enemy types. If we imagine a game, call it The Adventures of Johnny Bugspray Through Time, and we design it to have 10 different weapons and magic abilities, but we also include a blade weapon from level 1 that kills every enemy in 1 or 2 hits, and you can just smash through the whole game even on the highest difficulty, it would be kinda silly for the developers to then sit there saying, why is everyone just using the knife? We made all these cool, fun attack options, why are players ignoring them? Well, you made a badly designed game, guys. You nailed the graphics and the story, but you forgot to balance your combat. And as we know now, there will be people who defend that design, saying that being able to spam the knife is the pinnacle of creative player expression. But you know what? People are different. They have different ideas of fun. id's idea of the fun zone was being mobile, using a variety of weapons and tactics, using the grenade vulturing system to set up approaches to dangerous enemies like the Doom Hunter or the Mancubus, keeping an eye on your resources and staying engaged in the fight so you can replenish your armor. You know all this stuff, I don't have to explain it to you. But I've come across an unusual phenomenon from time to time. We all know there are people who say, if I want to play the game with just one weapon, I should be able to do that. And the fact that Doom Eternal doesn't let me means they're limiting my creativity as a player. Okay, so Doom Eternal forces you to play one way and doesn't let you abuse a single weapon. End of story, right? Well, no. At the same time, there are people who say the opposite. They claim to have played the game their first time just using the plasma rifle and the super shotgun, or just the rocket launcher and sticky bombs, completely ignoring their options regardless of the benefit. I recently had a back and forth with a player who says once he got the minigun, he just used the minigun for the rest of the game, and chainsawed to get more ammo and then repeated. And that experience shaped his view of the game. So we have two contradictory assessments of the game. 1, the game doesn't let me abuse one weapon, and 2, the game lets me abuse one weapon. Where does the truth lie? Unsurprisingly, the answers are more complex than that. The developers did not want to literally force you to use all your guns. They want you to want to use all your guns. They knew there were a lot of people that would instinctively fall into their normal patterns of relying on the easiest gun for them, ignoring everything else in the game. And they knew that if they could force the player to use other guns, players would fall in love with other weapons and styles they had never given a chance to. It definitely paid off. The evolution I've seen in players around the world because of this game has been incredible. People aren't only playing Doom Eternal like they've never played anything before, they're taking the lessons learned from this game and applying them to other games they love. Doom Eternal got in my blood so much that when I went back and played Prey again, I played it totally different. I used to just use heavy alien powers and shotgun everything. Now I'll do a quick shotgun blast, a psychic blast, a few pistol shots to get him to a certain health level, freeze him with the glue cannon, and then throw a recycler grenade at his feet to finish him off and turn his body into scrap that I can use to craft materials. I'm a totally different player now. But let's stick to how Doom Eternal molds the player without actually forcing them to play one way specifically. The theory behind the design of low ammo capacity, benefits of weapon swapping to increase your damage output and skip cooldowns, etc., is that if they force you to do this stuff in the early game, you'll want to do it in the late game because this stuff is fun. If you really just want to do one thing, it'll be pretty hard in the first level or two. You can choose to play that way. It's just harder and you need to be pretty good at the game. But as the game goes on, you do actually start getting the ability to rely on your preferred weapons. As early as level 3, you have 5 different weapons and up to 3 ammo capacity upgrades. And if you just want to use the super shotgun 90% of the time at that point, you can. And as you get stronger, that ability only grows. It is a totally bogus point to say that the game forces you to weapon swap all the time, when by the 3rd level you can already start ignoring it. If you got furious at the first level because you couldn't beat it on ultra violence for your first time by just running around doing whatever, and you can't even take a step back and see what the game is trying to show you, well, I'm honestly sorry you had a bad time, but I'm glad they're not listening to you. And you have plenty of other games you can dick around in. And I'm not saying those simpler games are inferior either, as I'm a big fan of many of them. Hell, you can play like that in this game if you want, starting just a couple levels into the game. Even from the first level if we're being real, because the first level is literally buried in ammo pickups. Shells are right here. Walk into the next area and there's shells and bullets here too. Up the jump pad for more shells. Shells over there. It's almost like the ammo placement in the first level is a signal to players that it's good to be moving around the arena. Or they're forcing you to move around the arena by spacing out ammo pickups. Depends on your perspective, I guess. So at this point, I'm pretty much done with the criticism that Doom Eternal doesn't let you play how you want with your preferred weapons. What I find much more interesting is the opposite critique, that Eternal does actually let the player rely on a preferred weapon and is therefore not balanced or designed well. It's an interesting topic because while it is kinda true, it also ignores very important factors. Coming back to my earlier point that the developers don't want to force you to play in the fun zone, they want you to want to play in the fun zone, weak points play a huge part in this. Targeting weak points is optional. They may not feel optional in the first level when you play for your first time, but they are optional. You don't have to target the Arachnotron turret. You can throw a grenade to falter him and melt him with micromissiles, or the full auto shotgun. The idea of making the Arachnotron turret an oppressive weapon that you can target serves multiple purposes of instruction for the player. Making the player want to eliminate the cannon does several important things. 1. It gets the player in the habit of switching weapons and mods when they may not be used to doing that, especially if they've never played Doom. 2. It helps the player work on their accuracy in chaotic moments of combat. 3. It shows the importance of prioritizing threats. 4. It gets the player used to the cooldown of the precision bolt and the arc of the sticky bomb. And 5. It sends the message that understanding your weapon utilities can give you an advantage in combat. The sticky bomb weak point for the Cacodemon plants the seed of imagination in the player. It's a very quick step in logic to go from switch to sticky bombs to kill Cacodemon to switch to ballista to kill Cacodemon and meat hook in for the armor kill. That second sequence is the natural consequence of having taught the player to switch to sticky bombs in the early game. The lesson was never use sticky bombs every time you see a Cacodemon. The lesson was switch to something that benefits what you need in this moment. If the game has successfully gotten the player into that mindset, they'll see a Cacodemon and think, I can meat hook off him to escape this bad spot. Or I can kill him with lock-on rockets right now. Or yes, I can sticky bomb him and get that glory kill because I need health right now. The early levels show very strong benefits to using the weak point system and weapon swapping as a way of establishing that instinct in the player. So they instinctively play that way in the later game because of all the fun they're having once it all clicks. And it all clicks right here, the Double Doom Hunter boss fight. Everything you've been learning culminates in this room. It's here that you either get it or you don't. When you come out of this fight, not only should you have a handle on the game's mechanics, but you should be having fun with them. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that the very next level, Super Gornest, opens with a giant playground to just go wild in? It's here that you should have figured out truly how you want to play Doom Eternal. You're strong enough, you have enough weapons and ammo, and you, the player, are talented enough to go forward truly in any way you want. At this point in the game, if you say, I'm just going to use the super shotgun for everything, or I'm just going to kill everything with a minigun, well, that's on you. Doom is supposed to have powerful weapons, and it makes sense for the Slayer to get that strong. If at this point, and in the later levels, the game were balanced to make it totally necessary to constantly switch your weapons, then the game truly would be forcing you to play one way. They could only do that by taking the weak point system to the absolute extreme. Imagine if Cacodemons could only be killed with a sticky bomb in the mouth. They're invincible to everything else. Arachnotron turrets must be targeted with Precision Bolt. The Cyber Mancubus is invincible until you blood punch his armor. Hell Knights and Dread Knights must be killed with the heavy cannon or the minigun. Doom Hunters cannot be damaged until you take down their shield with the plasma rifle. Every single heavy and super heavy demon has one specific weakness and nothing else. That would be forcing the player to weapon swap all the time. That would be the only way to guarantee that players wouldn't rely on their preferred weapons in the later levels. And is that really what you want? I know I don't. It sounds like an interesting mod. Prota, get on that please. Hashtag Prota make the mod. But really, they did it the right way. They pushed hard in the early game to show you not just how beneficial it is to use all your weapons, but also how fun it is. And after a few levels, they trust you to continue playing it in a way that's fun. If you're not having fun with weapon swapping and prioritizing threats, then you don't have to do that. But the theory behind the design is that you're going to enjoy it so much that by the time you're really powerful and you could start over-relying on just one or two weapons, you won't. And if you do, well, God bless you, have fun. But if you're not having fun because at that point you choose to ignore the game they've made, that says more about you than it does the game. If you don't want them to balance the combat by incentivizing weak point targeting and not giving you obscene amounts of ammo, and you also don't want there to be super strict requirements on what weapon has to be used against each enemy, what do you want? Do you want no weapon in Doom to be strong? Do you want a Doom game without a powerful super shotgun and rocket launcher? Or do you want every enemy to behave like a sub-boss with very specific strategies? Well, look, they've already toned down the weapons a bit since 2016, so they're more balanced. And we have new enemy types with unique behaviors and counters to add some new flavor to the mix. But they can't go 100% in on that stuff, or the game won't even be Doom anymore if there's no chaotic, brutal rip and tear action. In the months after Doom Eternal, it's really opened my eyes to how other games design their combat. Followers of this channel know that I see a lot of Doom Eternal in the old God of War games. Games with well thought out systems have been earning my praise, and those without them have been earning my scorn. I'm seeing how many developers seem to prioritize everything else over their combat, and it's pretty irritating. It's nice that there are some studios out there that still care about this stuff, whether they be games I love like Doom Eternal, or games that aren't for me like Dark Souls that have complex fighting systems of their own. In conclusion, I think id Software's mission with Doom Eternal wasn't to box in the player and force them to play in their fun zone. It was to introduce the fun zone to the player, betting everything on the idea that they would fall in love with it and want to stay there. But they also left it open for people who don't want to play the game that way. It may be a little harder for a while, but it's still there. There's a lot of ways to have fun with the game, whether you're into quick swap cooldown abusing, or jumping back and forth between just two preferred weapons, or sniping from the back with Precision Bolt and Ballista, playing brawler style with grenades and blood punch and full auto. I've been so impressed with the level of imagination in the Doom Eternal community. There's been so much more to talk about with this game, and that's a testament to the strength of its design. I know I talk about this stuff a lot, and sometimes I repeat concepts in my videos, but I just find it so interesting, and I think understanding the game on a deeper level leads to a higher appreciation of it and enjoyment. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to me, and I'll see you in the DLC.